Hello, this is Thomas Adams. Utilitarianism is the philosophy that looks at the greatest good for the greatest many. It can be broken down into its two main variants, that of act and rule utilitarianism. Act utilitarianism, associated with really the philosophy's founder, Jeremy Bentham, looks at all individual actors as having equal validity and puts them into determinable matrices that allow for the calculation of the greatest possible benefit. Trying to take the philosophy a step further would be the thought of rule utilitarianism. That would be formulated by John Stuart Mill, who would try to add more of a rule to the act structure of the Bentham predecessor. There's two ways to look at this distinction. First would be to see how utilitarianism is the inverse of Aristotelian philosophy. Aristotle saw things in form and matter. Form was the activating agent, and matter was the material. Think of an actor on stage. The physical presence of the actor is the matter. The words and the acting itself, the spirit of the performance that comes forth to the audience, that would be the form. Now with utilitarianism, we see the development happening in the inverse. First matter and then form. Act utilitarianism is the matter. It basically looks at phenomena as the consequences that matter. It differentiates itself from Kantian deontology in that Kantianism looked at the preceding concepts deductively that went into an action, whereas utilitarianism looks at the ripple effect of the event itself and the ultimate, almost inductive capacity to see the overall ripple effect of the action, and in doing so to see how any action might ripple out to the potential greatest benefit. Whereas act utilitarianism focuses on the matter, rule utilitarianism focuses on the form, trying to, one could say, formulate rules and taking the quantitative approach of act utilitarianism and giving it more of a qualitative formulation, allowing the structure to become more streamlined while not looking at things in a precognitive, conceptual, Kantian way, but to give a formulated, streamlined ethos to the structure that would ensue. If we look at a game, the development of a regular pastime, and that it eventually will become the national pastime, like baseball. Baseball, it's said, was developed in and around the time of the Civil War by Abner Doubleday, and it probably was a game that developed organically, where you had the players as the components, certain materials that were used, and the game functioned basically to the greatest enjoyable benefit for those that were playing, in a way that's analogous to to act utilitarianism. Now later on, as baseball becomes more developed, as it becomes a professional sport, along with it you see the development of rules. You see the development of not only the components, the quantitative, the athletes, but also those there to provide more of a qualitative analysis of what is going on, like the umpire and the other refereeing officials. Also the development of rules, where it is played. The standardization of the initial principles becomes something which is more streamlined. That would be more like rule utilitarianism. From the act to the rule. Now, no matter the variant that we look at, the end result is the same, to try to maximize impact. From a game of pastime to the motion picture, the imitation game, the context of which, looking at really the ultimate goal, the high achievement of Alan Turing, and the breaking of the Enigma code, allowing for the victorious war effort of the Allies against the Axis powers of World War II, we have a scene which challenges us with utilitarian aspects. Once the code is broken, and the code breakers within Bletchley Park in England, once they know that the code has been broken, they are faced with a choice. Should they stop immediately the next attack, or do they allow for further attacks to occur with the knowledge that in the overall consequence, letting certain things happen now might bring the ultimate end of the war more rapidly, might allow it to end more quickly. It's a very haunting choice, because what will determine and who will determine the greatest benefit for the greatest good? And with this being one of the main criticisms of utilitarianism, what is sacrificed? Does it place people as a means to a greater end, thereby negating what Kant would have seen as the second formulation of the categorical imperative? In the ripple effect of our actions, how does one consider the greatest possible benefit? Do we look at the actors? Do we look at the materials? Do we look at events in their organic development? Do we look at things in more of a streamlined, rule-based process that tries to take the quantitative into more of a qualitative approach, establishing rules that might help to guarantee an analysis of actions for the greatest benefit to the greatest number? In doing so, we have the challenge of utilitarianism and the challenge of this second great modern philosophy, along with Kantian ethics. It helps to give a scope to how many people and to how many approaches are utilized for the perceived and the received best benefit, the best impact, the greatest happiness. In that way, we cover both greatness as well as challenges such as sacrifice. And in doing so, are given further tools to explore along the overall road of ethical discovery. Thank you.